2020, this was the same topic. You know, supply chain issues and struggles of that. We thought we were going to be covering something that was a stopgap interim situation to get through what was going to be a bumpy season. We had no idea that I'd be standing before you almost 2 years later talking about the same thing. And I don't think anybody on the panel is going to have an answer as to when this may end, but they're certainly going to have a lot of information about the state of affairs and their specific areas. And hopefully there'll be some good dialogue and questions come forward. So the way we're going to run this evening is we're going to go in a specific order. And I'm going to ask each of the panelists as I introduce you to come up and speak from your perspective of the current challenges. And if you have any future prospect on what may be coming, any words of wisdom that you could share. Unlike last time when we solely focused on just the residential construction issues, we're taking a much more macro approach and then going to micro. And we've got representatives from the SC, the Trucking Association, the SC Manufacturers Alliance, the South Carolina Department of Commerce, and then we're going to have somebody from Culpeper Wood, and then we'll get into the individual building supply and then perspectives from both a large builder and a smaller builder. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Rick Todd from the SC Trucking Association. Rick, if you could come up and share some insight. Thank you.
Good evening. How are you? I appreciate the invite. Thank you. See you, some of you other folks here. How many of you, well, 6 months ago, you had a panel like this?
October 20th.
Not the last time we did this.
SMC did one about 6 months ago.
Oh, okay. How many of you were in that audience then? All right, so I don't want to give a repeat necessarily, but ain't a heck of a lot changed since then. I'm usually the skunk at every picnic because people don't like trucks, but they want their stuff, but they don't want the trucks. Right now, I'm usually the popular person. If I go somewhere and somebody's business guys are talking and they hear something to the effect of there's a trucker or whatever, people run to you like you've got trucks and drivers that they can hire right now. So, I don't have any trucks, but I run the association, have been for 43 years. The association is really an alliance of businesses that use trucks or depend on trucks. We're very, very diverse industry. Every sector pretty much depends on trucks. We're kind of like every other link in the supply chain. And it's nice to finally have people, the general public, you guys are business people, so you get it. Most average citizen really had no idea what logistics really meant, what the supply chain really is. And so it's kind of fun to actually have people interested now and caring about it. And it's also put a value back on trucking because, you know, when Amazon came along and e-commerce came along, everybody started thinking shipping was free. Well, there is no such thing as free shipping. I mean, somebody's paying for it. It's embedded in there somewhere. So now people are really starting to wake up to the fact that, well, it does get to my front door. Not as quickly, but now there's usually a delay at cost. So I had my staff compile some stuff and dump it. I haven't had a chance to review it, but I can talk all day. I really look forward to more Q&A, but you might be interested. How many of you guys have commercial motor vehicles, anything over 10,000 pounds, or even over 26,000? So you know what this is. For you, those of you who don't, if you hire a driver to drive a vehicle over 10,000 pounds, you are subject, if you cross state lines, you're subject to federal motor carrier safety regulations, and you have to have driver qualification files. So instead of grabbing a regular file folder to dump this stuff in, I said, well, it'd be kind of cool, talking point here, whatever, prop. So in this litigious society, the only way I would be able to sleep at night if I had a commercial truck that I owned and I was hiring a driver, somebody put my whole business on the line with by sending them out to haul something. It would be as simple as just a picture of Jesus Christ in here, because you have to be almost that perfect to avoid a massive nuclear verdict in case something happens. Of course, the price was it's perfect. We needed to make mistakes, but people do. Trial lawyers are our biggest concern, and this being part of this messed up supply chain is our second concern. Workforce, Stan has been active with us on our Be Pro, Be Proud workforce initiative to try to recruit people to get into the trucking industry and skilled trades. You may have seen it, your organization through Mark Nix and others have been very good partners with us. The legislative committee that funds the operation of that unit met this morning. And the Department of Employment Workforce with Dan Elsie and Mark is here helping us put public-private partnership together to make that thing happen. So the private sector made the equipment available for private donations to our foundation, and then the state of running operations. It's a really, really good public-private partnership, and it's a cool unit. If you've never seen it, you don't know what we're talking about, go to BPro or BProBeProudSC.org. It's pretty fascinating.
Rick, I'll interrupt.
Yes.
Just for everybody here, Rick is president of our Association of Industries South Carolina Foundation, which runs the Be Pro, Be Proud unit and initiative, and he has been an outstanding leader. So he's not here just about trucking, but he's been supportive for us in our workforce efforts as well.
Well, I appreciate that, Stan. You've been a great volunteer with this. We're doing this with the Chamber, the Home Builders Association, manufacturers, the AGC, the Associated General Contractors, Chamber of Commerce, and Forestry Association. So it's our 5 organizations that kind of banded together. It's been a lot of fun. It really has. Last week sometime, this trade journal was published, and it's the annual view on what's going to happen going forward. It's a review of what happened last year and what's going forward. And it's really all of the major modes and intermediaries involved in the transportation industry worldwide. It's the Journal of Commerce. It's a really cool read. I tore out some stuff, but I'll leave it here and somebody can grab it if you want to. But it's all the modes, and it is really, pardon my French, it's one big bitch session this year. Everybody's pointing the finger at everybody else. Nobody wants to own the problems, and it is, for a port or the international supply chain to work like we're used to it. It's really like a symphony playing without a conductor. Everybody's got to do their thing right on time, and if any end of it breaks down, the whole thing is screwed up. And that's where we are today. I've never seen it this way. I think the supply chain worked better when we had pirates everywhere. Truckers are leaving employment and buying a stupid high used truck and becoming a trucking company in record numbers now, because they're doing a gold rush on the spot market. Spot market trade rates are off the charts. And so they're going to make money while they can, and then they'll go bankrupt and leave that equipment for nothing. And truck values will go down, everybody's balance sheet will be all messed up, and they'll go back and make good money being an employee again. So we're in a huge shift right now, and the whole supply chain is changing. We're going to see more near sourcing. Manufacturers can probably talk about that. But inventories and being part of a global network is scary right now. And so everybody's rethinking everything. And so I don't think it's going to change probably for a year. That's not good news. But we've been operating, when I say we, everybody here, but the trucking, and I'll be done in a second, and I'll do Q&A after everybody else. The trucking industry, we're regulated by federal rules if you operate interstate commerce, but also by state laws, mostly mirrors that. There's some exceptions. Anytime there's an emergency declaration, like a natural disaster or something, federal government from time to time on a regional basis, only since COVID had they done a national trucking declaration, waiving all these rules and regs, size, weight, safety, hours of service, stuff like that. We've been operating in this state under some type of emergency declaration where they're waiving all these regs. On and off for the better part of 4 or 5 years, if you can think about it. Go back to the floods, and then the hurricanes, and then not fires, hopefully not earthquakes, but winter storms, now COVID. So I feel sorry for truck drivers because they're being pushed hard and they're exposing themselves to fatigue and burnout, like you. But also it exposes the fleets, even if they're operating under a waiver, they have an accident, they're gonna get hung out to dry. So one fun fact is this is a copy of one of the pages from the governor's a couple of months ago declaration. And y'all know how much of a pain in the rear end it is to have somebody hang out in the left lane of the interstate. So last year, I was talking to one of the leaders in the Senate. I said, you know, it's about time y'all go ahead and pass that thing because we've been in the way of it for a long time because we didn't want truckers to be singled out. Because if the trucker's stuck out there, he's stuck because people aren't going to give him time to move over. They're going to pass him on the right, tailgate him, get mad at him, and he can't make the grade. And then he's just, you know, and I don't want these guys getting tickets on their CDL. So we got truck exceptions built into it. But I said, y'all need to go ahead and pass this thing. I'm sick of it myself. And so almost for fun, the governor included a paragraph, a new paragraph in the last emergency declaration, and it read, blah, 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 to facilitate operation of critical transportation services, blah, 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 to the maximum extent possible. I want all law enforcement agencies to enforce that left lane ban. And you could almost see him put damn it on there. But I just thought that was pretty funny. So that's no good news. We need drivers to some degree, but y'all need workers. I mean, we're all in the same boat, we're competing, poaching from each other. And I don't see it getting any better in the near future. But a lot of things we can talk about, and I'm for participating on panel.
All right, great, thank you so much. Next, we have Rebecca Leach with SC Manufacturers Alliance.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Rick, for opening up for us. Rick, Todd and I have worked together for many years on business-related things. So I am Rebecca Leach. I am with the South Carolina Manufacturers Alliance. We represent, of course, the state's manufacturers, anything from your really big guys like Boeing and BMW and Volvo, to our tire companies, down to our textile mills, you name it, we represent it in South Carolina. Got a really great, robust manufacturing industry in our state, so we're very lucky for that. So, Rick, to your point about us operating under executive orders and emergency declarations for many years, we are also under one for this weekend. They've issued another one, so we just had one for last weekend because of the snowstorm, and now we've got another one for this week. So you're right, we're always having to manage all these different emergency orders and trying to figure out how to best navigate those. So I think, like probably the rest of the panelists are going to share today, it's just Groundhog Day all over again. There's nothing much has changed in the past few years. We're all still having supply chain issues, of course, and there is no magic bullet to fix that. Like Rick said, we're all blaming each other. We're all just trying to figure out the best way to move forward at the same time. So I think, you know, this supply chain crisis that we've experienced as a result of the pandemic kind of taught us all of us a lesson. I mean, you know, a lot of us are in the industry, we understand supply chain, you know how important logistics are. But I think as far as our like day-to-day life, we are recognizing how much supply chain impacts us, from being able to get, gosh, does everybody remember the great toilet paper shortage? 2020, why? I don't know why, but there was. And at the time I represented the retail industry, so that was fun dealing with that. But you know, we're just learning that for, you know, whatever reason supply chain impacts us. And it happens in weird ways that you don't think. So, you know, at the beginning of the pandemic, factories were shut down across the world, of course, a lot of them due to federal mandates. And South Carolina, we luckily did not have that issue, but if our suppliers were shut down, then it stopped our operations, of course. And so when things kind of a couple months in started kind of getting back open again, the problem was we couldn't access additional new supplies that we needed, like PPE. We needed PPE to be able to bring our employees back. But you couldn't get it. It was stuck in China, it was stuck on the boat somewhere. And so it was the weird things like that that started impacting our supply chain that we didn't normally have to accommodate for. And so, one of the big things that I think a lot of you guys have heard about, and I'm sure it impacts your industry in some way, is the semiconductor shortage. That was a huge impact for the manufacturers, especially our automotive folks. But of course, semiconductors are used in a lot of different products. And so mainly, of course, in automobiles it's used. And so they they had initially kind of stopped production just for, safety reasons, and demand was, of course, down at the beginning of the pandemic. And then once demand got back up, they couldn't get going because they didn't have these semiconductors. Because a lot of folks, of course, had moved to working from home, to learning from home. Everybody, I know y'all know this, everybody was remodeling. Everybody would do their at-home projects because they were home, so why not? And all those products, the computers and the appliances and all the things, they have semiconductors. And so the market had shifted to those products and away from our auto industry. So our auto industry really had a hard time getting new suppliers back on board to get those semiconductors back into their facilities and back into their products. So what's the manufacturing industry doing to try to help alleviate this, try to find the answer to how to move forward on this? And there is no magic bullet, and I often joke that the batteries in my crystal ball are broken. I don't know. We don't know, but I can tell you what we are working towards doing. Really reassessing our supply chain, the way we used to conduct things. The whole idea of just-in-time products. That's how we all like to operate. Just have our products here just in time. We don't have a backlog. We don't have to worry about storage. That obviously did not work during the pandemic. So we're having to rethink that, having to introduce a lot more technology into our production. So you're not depending on maybe things coming from offshore. And then, of course, diversifying your supply chain base. Not having just one or two suppliers for these products. You need to have multiple suppliers. And then I think Rick mentioned this, reshoring or nearshoring our products. So bringing them back closer to home instead of having to wait for a ship coming from China or South Africa or wherever. We got them here at home. However, one of the biggest problems that we're experiencing right now, I guess in addition to supply chain issues, as you all know, is our workforce issue. It is a tremendous challenge for us right now. Even if we have the products and have the things necessary to continue our operations, we don't have the people. And what's the answer to that? I mean, employers are throwing a ton of money, a ton of benefits, waiving certain qualifications and requirements just to try to get people on board, and we still can't seem to find people. It's the most, I think, bizarre thing that we're experiencing, and I think it's going to be a really interesting study in maybe 10 years when I look back and see where did everybody go? Where are they going? Where are they hiding? So we're working hard to try to address that at Manufacturing Alliance with our coalition of other business groups like the Truckers Association. We are working with the General Assembly and the Governor's Office to request funding for these programs in our technical schools to go ahead and get folks trained. It would be at no cost to the students to get them upskilled. You don't have to be, a traditional student. You could be an older student that maybe is certified in something, but you want to go to the next level. So we're working, that program is already in place at our 16 technical colleges. We are requesting more funds to continue that program in the coming years, so it hopefully get folks trained and credentialed in a very short order and back into the workforce. So our truck drivers, like Rick Todd said, our truck drivers are, we don't have them, we need them, we can't get them. We make our products all day long, but if you sit there, can't get them anywhere. And so that's a big program we're working on. One thing we do at the Manufacturers Alliance, a program that we have, is called SC Future Makers. It's a program, we joke, it's kind of like LinkedIn for high school students, but you don't have to be just a high school student. But a student would make a profile of kind of the things they're interested in, what they're looking at doing, uploading any testing or scores or GPAs or whatever. And then we have businesses who also sign up for this program, and then we connect you so you can find potential employees. And so it's been a really great resource. It's something that we have worked on for several years, but it's really we're focusing our efforts to take it to the next level now, especially in light of this workforce issue. And so I invite any of you, if you're interested in learning more about SE Future Makers or wanting to sign up to try to help find some employees for yourself, we'll be glad to connect you. But it really is a great resource. We can even, dive into data and look at different high schools and what programs they have. So if you want to look at for some kids who have had some training and whatever you would like for them to have, we can delve into that, really identify those students. We can do push campaigns for you where you send out, we'll send out messages to these students and say, hey, did you know that this employer is in your backyard and they have internships, paid internships, they have, jobs. So it's just a way to try to connect folks. So, I kind of got off topic there, but that really, in addition to the supply chain issue, workforce is just another factor into that supply chain issue and to really what is causing one of the problems and trying to get that back on track. Now, as far as when we think this might get better, I've been reading lots of articles, doing lots of research, trying to keep a pulse on what folks are predicting. I read one yesterday that said 2025, which is unnerving, but also not that far away if you think about it. But it is unnerving for our industry. So, and maybe that needs back to 100%. And if we could even just get to like 75%, I think we'd be doing really good. So. So anyway, we're working hard, trying to make sure we can do our part to assist, like I said, with what we can, which is the workforce issue, to get folks back into making these products. So with that, I'll let the next speaker go and look forward to hearing any questions you guys may have.
Thank you, Rebecca. Next, we have Jamie Green of the South Carolina Department of Commerce.
So, good afternoon. Again, I'm Tammy Green. I'm the Business Outreach Program Manager with the South Carolina Department of Commerce. So that is a lot of what I just said. First thing is South Carolina Department of Commerce. Most people get us confused with the chamber. Chambers are great, but we are the lead economic development agency for the state. So just like Rebecca just mentioned, our agency is responsible for recruiting a lot of the large manufacturers into the state, like your Lowman BMWs, just like Rebecca mentioned. But what a lot of you guys don't know is that we also have a small business section. So I kind of oversee small business section. So our goal is to help cultivate South Carolina businesses, large and small, new and existing. So what we do, we are a small but mighty team. We're called the Green Team, because my last name is Green. So what we do is we work with local small businesses. We make sure that you guys have the resources that you need to sustain and to grow. Another thing that I kind of oversee is our supplier outreach program. So I think that's something that most of you in the room may be interested in. We have a database called Source SC. It's just that simple, sourcesc.com. If you visit Source SC, it is a online database that allows you all to search for local suppliers. So we know supply chain is an issue, and our whole goal is to find local suppliers. So you can go visit, register your company. It's no charge. That's your taxpayer dollars at work for you all to be a member of Source SC. So it works in two ways. First, you can be listed as a supplier. But we also use that for when our large companies come into the state. We really work with them to say, hey guys, instead of looking at Georgia, North Carolina, Alabama, we have local suppliers here that we can help match you with. A couple options that we offer is a matchmaking. So right now we're working in conjunction with SCMA, the Automotive Council or Automotive Summit. That's going to take place March 1st. And so what we do is that we invite large, for this event, it's going to be manufacturers in the automotive space. So, we have a commitment from Volvo, a new company called Oshkosh Defense, Proterra. There's about 11 or 12 OEMs that have confirmed that they will be in attendance. And what we're doing is having our local suppliers sign up to match with them. It's speed dating. It's about 15 minutes. You're not going to sign a contract at that event, but certainly it's an opportunity to start conversation. So most of you in the room are like, okay, well that is an automotive company. What do I have to offer? well, you know, you will be surprised what you have to offer. You're not sure what the needs are, what the current needs are, maybe the future needs. We are looking for all types of suppliers, not just in the manufacturing space. Another thing that we offer is not in addition to the B2B, we do like outreach events again for those large companies. I mentioned Oshkosh Defense, they're up in Spartanburg. They were looking for all types of suppliers, from plumbers to landscaping to if you name it, that's what they were looking for. In addition to, because not only do they have a building to build and have to maintain, but they also, you know, are gonna start building that product at some point. So again, we ask that you visit, you know, sourcesc.com and register your company. It is just a great tool, and guys, we never know what we need. We reached out to Todd, and he can attest to this. You know, several months ago, there was a company in Georgetown that was looking for a trucking company. It was very specific. It was like a niche type of trucking company that they were looking for, but I didn't have anyone in Source SC. And we have another database as well that I've searched extensively, could not find that. So reach out to Todd, and he probably sees the emails and says, okay, what do they want now? So we just have a really broad scope of resources that we can find. So if we don't have it in our database, you know, we'll reach out to like the Todds and Rebecca's and other partner agencies. We partner with lots of agencies in South Carolina. So I think that's pretty much it. I just, what the message that I wanted to convey to you all is that, yeah, supply chain is an issue. However, you guys are important to us, and we want to make sure that we are matching you. And if there's a need that you have, we want to make sure that we are, you know, we're a resource for you. So again, feel free to reach out. I think my contact information will be available, but just want you guys to know that South Carolina Department of Commerce, we're in the business of helping all companies, large and small, new and existing, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dan. Next, we have David Anderson with Culpeper Wood Preserve.
Good evening. Just want to make sure everybody's awake. I see some friends out there. See, did you move to the back there, Stan? No, my name is David Anderson. I'm with Culpeper Wood Preserving. We have been buying southern yellow pine and pressure treating it in Northeast Columbia for, I've been here 26 years. Does anybody know what a woodchuck is? You ever seen a woodchuck? You're looking at a woodchuck. That's what we do. We buy southern yellow pine and we pressure treat it and we sell it to these fine folks. Matter of fact, that's why I'm here today. Charlie said he'd quit buying from me if I didn't come out here and talk about this. But that's what we do. This is what we do every day. And we have manufacturing, we have labor, we've got trucking, we got it all. So we deal with the same issues that you guys do. So there's a couple of reasons. Anybody buy southern yellow pine framing? A little bit of treated every now and then? Okay. Any Canadians in the room? Good, let's talk about them. One of the things that started this crazy wave we have been on with this lumber market, I'm sure that everybody has seen the prices just go crazy. Somebody asked me what I thought the market was going to look like this year. I said, you ever seen a cardiogram? But what happened really, there were some transportation issues with some cars out of Canada. You had the tariff the administration was putting on the spruce, and yet spruce is used a lot for framing. Okay, well, what does that have to do with pine? Well, when spruce got more expensive than pine, guess what the framing guys did? Exactly the same thing that I would do or you would do. Well, let's use the cheaper product. So now you got a lot of hands in this pine cookie jar. You got more people buying pine than normal. And now all of the, you call a southern yellow, you call a pine mill today and you try to get a price on something, you're out of luck. Okay. I know I know this industry in times past has, you know, you guys, especially builders, have bought in a contracted time period. This is how much your price is gonna be for this amount of time, okay? In December, this past December, now in Columbia, we're buying approximately 5,000 trucks of Southern Yellow Pine a year, okay? And we're one of 11 plants, Culpeper Wood Preserving, based out of Culpeper, Virginia, family-owned company. It's fourth largest treater in the US, okay? But we're family-owned, we move quick. But we have mill partners that we buy from. We know who we want to buy from. So we go to these guys in December and we want to buy some lumber. Well, guess what? Nobody wants to sell us a truck of lumber with a firm price on it today. I don't know how you run your business, but I don't like giving purchase orders with no numbers on them, with no pricing on them. But the problem is lumber mills only want to sell about 3 weeks worth of production. Once they've got an order file, and they know the market is going up, they're just as smart as you and I. Why do I want to sell it today when I can sell it tomorrow for more money? So what we're seeing is a trend in this market is I'm trying to buy lumber, Charlie's trying to buy, nobody has any lumber. The mills, once they get an order file, we're off the market. So we're forced to, I gotta have lumber. I gotta have lumber to sell. You gotta have lumber, so you gotta have it. So we're actually giving mills purchase orders right now, price time shipment on 3 and 4 week wood. That's the only way I'm going to have profit, is if I know it's gonna be 4 weeks before I see it. I know the market is gonna be up. I have no idea what you're going to charge me, but here's 10 POs and can I get 10 more? This is how much fun we're having. So be patient with these guys. Know that they're only as good as their suppliers. And I'm only as good as my suppliers. So, you know, there is a lot of factors. Know that we are in the market every day. We don't make big block buys and then sit out. We find we have better partners in the manufacturing field, in the pine mills, when we're in it every day. I'm buying some wood today, and I'm gonna buy some wood tomorrow. So, you know, have patience, know that contracts, just more and more, we know who we want to buy wood from. I know most of it, 95% of my lumber comes within 150 miles of Columbia, South Carolina, because I've got to keep my costs down, freight being a large part of it. So I know who I want to buy lumber from, and I'm going to contract with those mills. I'm going to tell them I want 25 loads from you every month. It will not waver. Well, what has happened is everybody knows who those good mills are. So the contracts are heavier now than they've ever been. A lot of times building supplies will have contracts and then they'll buy open market wood, kind of averages the two together in case you know, the markets are doing like this. Well, what happens when everybody's got contracts on, there's less open market wood for anybody to buy. So we've got I expect when I give a contract to a mill, I expect them to ship my loads first. Within the first 2 weeks of the month, I expect to have my lumber before they start selling open market wood. So when so the open market wood, now the guys that don't have partners are scrambling trying to find material and they're paying unbelievable prices for it. We are already, I hate to say this, we're already in Southern Yellow Pine. We're already above last year's high. We're January. Y'all want to know what it's going to do in March, April? Me too. We run our inventory. We're not doing anything different than God is here. I'm buying 25 days worth of material. And when I've got 25 days worth of material, I'm not buying anymore, which means I'm still buying every day. So just know that you have some good partners. We're local. We're buying locally. And I think this year's market is just going to be, talking with our purchasing guys, they're saying that we all know what the problems with the pandemic are. Mills are having troubles finding employees to cut lumber. Most mills that we deal with are telling us their production is down 25%. Sounds like a lot. Let me break that down even more for you. Most Southern Yellow Pine mills are doing about 100 million board feet a year. Okay, you're down 25%. That's 1,100 truckloads of pine that are no longer in the system. So it's real. It's real. And we don't know, this year it looks like it is going to be very similar to last year, which we know lumber started running in December and didn't break until June. That's kind of what it feels like for 2022. Not to say there's not going to be a couple of ups and downs. Everybody knows the lumber market looks just like NASDAQ than the stock market. You don't know. That's it. You got too many hands in the cookie jar. We're not buying for spring because we're not looking at investing in these dollar amounts of the price of lumber today. We do think there will be a buying opportunity between now and spring. But yes, everybody else who buys Southern Yellow Pine is thinking the same thing. So when you see a little bit of relief in the pricing of Southern Yellow Pine, you're going to have 150 people trying to get in that keyhole and buy that lumber, which is just going to shoot it up. And it's the new normal. It's the new normal. Thanks for your attention. Does anybody have any questions?
Well, good questions out there.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Next, we have Charlie Weir with the Bills.
Like David, I have no good news. When I started putting this together, I tried to break it up into inflation, supply, and demand. Every time I would write something down, I would move it to one of those three categories. So it may sound like I'm rambling, I am. But I also deal in daily facts and figures and numbers and reality. And everybody in this room, I recognize, has all the experience of what we're going through now, because you all were here last year. Anybody before that has never lived through what we're living through today, unless they lived through it last year because of the pandemic. That changed everything in our industry. Random Lengths is a barometer. It tells you what lumber is going to be selling for, ups and downs, whys, do's, don't, weather, rail, takes in all kinds of different factors. It's only a barometer, a guide, if you want to follow it. To give you some facts and figures, 6 weeks ago, OSB was $16. Tomorrow it'll be $28. We peaked last year at 15.15 on the barometer for Random Lengths, the lumber number. The lowest it got was last August at less than 400. That's the change that we're seeing. That's why, do I put this in inflation or do I put it in supply? Do I put it in demand? Numbers like that cover everything that we're talking about. Like David, I don't see a real break in pricing until the second quarter, maybe beyond. Who can predict it? Are we going to live through what we did last year? Sure, I'll roll the dice because it's going to be very similar. It certainly started off that way, except that this year it's earlier. What I don't see is a lot of do-it-yourselfers because they did it last year. They don't need to do it this year. Now, contrary to that, when you get the building permits week to week, and I get them for the whole state. I don't know where these people are getting the money to build these swimming pools. I mean, it is crazy, the number of people that are building pools. And then you start to think about the number of developments that already have a pool. Okay, I have a pool, I would love to fill it in. It is a pain in the butt. You know, I didn't get this old to be doing this much work on a pool. So, but the money that people spend, there was a permit for Dabo Sweeney. They put in a $240,000 pool. I just shook my head. I showed it to my sales guys. They shook their heads. But are we going to see that this year? It's starting off that way. The pools are continuing. But the do-it-yourselfers, they can't put in another deck. They don't need another fence. So we're not going to see that this year. So I think in his side of it, with the treated prices, it's not going to be that surge for fencing and decking materials. I don't see it this spring. That may be the only thing I don't see this spring. Price increases again, I see it going through at least the second quarter. I have updated this, as a matter of fact, within 2 hours of coming here. Mortgage rates today are the highest they've been since last August. Excuse me, since April of 2020. Almost 2 years. They're the highest right now. They're at 3.75. Is the number that was on the radio from the National Mortgage Association. I suspect with the feds going up, we're going to see 5 or 6 before the third quarter, as far as mortgage rates go. That's my thought process. Some of the things that added to inflation was the Canadian tariffs on spruce. They went from 9% to 18%. And on top of that, just this week, truckers have to be vaccinated to go to and from the Canadian border. If you have a mill in Canada that doesn't have a rail siding, how are you going to get that lumber to South Carolina? You're not. And if it doesn't come to South Carolina, let's just say it just goes over the border to New York, you have the filtering down process to where, okay, they stop in New York, we don't get it down here. We'll get it by rail, hopefully. They won't have any more problems with the fires or the inclement weather or maybe even another Canadian railroad strike. When you get into demand, we have less than 3 months housing supply. We've had it. We haven't gained anything. Am I right? Right, we're at 3 months. We need 6 months. We just are
Less than that.
less than that. We can't get to where we need to be. So the demand is still there. One of our track builders just had a seminar, 4 reasons why the demand is in our area. One is COVID. The other one is millennials. The other one, their jobs are rebounding, which we don't see down here because we're at full employment. 3.5%, 4%, that's full employment in this area, has been ever since I lived down here. The other thing he pointed out, Carolina affordability. You got it. Them damn Yankees like myself have been coming down here for years, and now there's just no stopping. You know who's making all the money? The toll takers on I-95. They're laughing all the way to the bank. So they keep coming, fine. I got the permit report last week for Kiwa. There was 3 or 4 pages just in remodelers. There was 14 or 16 homeowners out of state, Kentucky, Wisconsin, all over. And now they're doing a remodeling, and remodeling a Kiwa is like building a small house. Labor shortages, again, 3 to 4% full employment. early retirements. You had millions of people quit their jobs during the pandemic because they could afford it, they got out early, they inherited money. Because not only did you have enough in your savings, but as the elderly, our parents passed, where did their inheritance go? So you had people dropping out of the job corps. Again, do-it-yourselfers, I just don't see the year we had last year. On the supply end for materials, iron prices tough to get. If I'm on the phone, not dealing with someone like David because I know what he's going to do. But someone offers me a truckload of studs. If I'm not ready to give them the PO, then there's no callback. You either take it or leave it. That's the way it is. Lead times. You could ride around. The builders here know you can't finish a house. You got all the framing, you got to stop. You can't get the windows. You can't get the windows, you can't trim it. Well, some people can't even put a roof on it because they're still waiting for trusses. So we've changed the way we started building. Can I speak for you all like that? We've had to, because you have to build for what you can get first. One development near our store in West Columbia is just full of houses that have literally changed color on the outside because they can't get enough windows. One right next to it is sided, which means special windows or some other issue with it. One Saturday, I rode through the development and every house had a shower stall sitting outside. Gee, now I know what they were waiting for. They didn't have the shower stalls and all of them came in at once. So they're able to put them in, and it's step by step by step. We had a builder that had 30-some houses in the framing process. We went with no orders from this builder for almost 3 months. What's going on? I can't finish. I can't finish the framing on these houses to start another one. I've got to wait till I get my windows. I got to wait for everything else that he needs. Excuse me. And I'm just in the lumber and building materials. I'm not in plumbing. I'm not in electrical. But I can imagine what they're going through because of what I go through. Lead times on windows and trusses, 6 months. Tell somebody that wants to build a house on Lake Murray that he better decide today so that he can get his house started before the end of the year, or maybe even beyond that. Builders, they've changed the way they do business. Now we have standardization. And this is carried forward with whether it be windows, whether it be siding, whether it be shingles, standardized color. A company like Trex, they've gotten away from all their specialties. You only get 6 or 8 colors now. Before you used to have 20-some colors you could get. Same thing with roofing. Vinyl siding the same way. Everybody's standardized now. You have to, because anything manufactured is going to be more expensive, as well as a long lead time and ability to get. And it's just, there's no let up in sight. Every day there's something else that comes up. We're in allocation. We can only get 1 truckload of fiber cement a month. What do you buy? Do you buy the lap siding? Do you buy panels? What do you buy? Trex is the same way. You get 1 truckload a month. What colors do you want? You want all grays? You want all browns? This is where, as he puts it, partnership comes into play. If you're a partner with your builder and you're working together, you bypass some of these problems. Roofers, the same way. They got away from a lot of colors that we'll probably never go back to because they can't catch up, whether it be with employment, with trucking, logistics, COVID. You know, what's going to keep you going with the products that you need to sell? Windows. You're not going to see the fancy ovals or the half rounds, or all those others that we used to have, because nobody wants to wait 6 months. But there's no let up as far as lead time go in vinyl windows. You know, where the specials are probably 26 weeks, 6 months, you might be able to get 20 weeks on a vinyl window, which is your plain Jane. So that has made the builders come back and say, okay, no specials, this is it. Some simple facts that I wrote down in the last week for a couple of days is 1 in 5 houses is being built by an investor. 1 in 5. That just blows you away as a commoner. There's other people in the room that know why that's happening, but you either make it in the stock market, but you can't make it at a bank. So if you're going to invest in something, land and real estate has only gone up. That's not going to change. 93% increase in year-over-year purchases, or excuse me, our second homes. 93% increase in second homes year-over-year. People got money. This is what they're doing with it. There's 1 house for sale for every 4 realtors. Anybody here want to get their real estate license on the side? Don't waste your time. A lot of what I said here, as a member of the HPA, you get the newsletters every week from the state HPA and the National Association. What I'm telling you today is in those documents. You get them online every day, and some of those articles, if you really get into the depth of it, will surprise you, but it'll also make you feel real and give you a lot of knowledge about where we're at and where we're going. But to echo David, which I don't normally do, yeah, this year is just like last year. But it's all about having partners like David as a supplier. And Craig in the back with Norfolk as well. If we don't work together, builders are builder partners. We all call it trade partners. We're on the same trade. I'm kind of in an odd situation because in my position, I'm a buyer and seller. I've got to watch random. I don't have a buyer watching it for me. I got to buy when I can. I got to lean on him for his advice so that I can protect my trade partners. Because then I go back and put my seller hat on. So a unique situation, a lot of facts. Didn't mean to ramble, but that's the best way to present it to you. Because you can say it's inflation, you can say it's supply, you can say it's demand. Everything is every damn one of them. This year, just like our last year. Don't see any let up, at least for the first 6 months. Plan ahead and communicate with your partner. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Our last 2 panelists this evening are both builders. First, we're going to have Josh Miller, the purchasing manager for the Columbia region of Mungo Homes. So Josh, if you'll
Thanks, Mike.
give them an idea, as we now both speak, the scale of your operations, what you represent.
Thanks, Mike. I got the email from Alan. Alan, thanks for having me. The subject matter said supply chain issues. And all of us in this room know exactly what that means. I carry it with me every single day. It's in my pocket when I sleep. It's in my pocket when I'm awake. Directly behind that, Alan, you put bourbon and beer. So thanks for that.
That was intentional.
Thanks. I figured that. Thanks for that. That pick me up. That was kind of nice. So again, I know most of you here, a lot of you are here, but I'm with Mungo and
Can you stand a little closer, Mike?
I'm with Mungo and the challenges are what we deal with every single. We did a little over 900 houses last year. We put between 18 and 23 houses out a week. So and Charlie hit the nail on the head with a substantial portion of everything that he said of how we go about and how we the way things are at the moment. So I jotted some things down, just kind of what I deal with every day. And again, there's 2 sides to supply chain problems or supply chain issues. The first one is, how did we get there and why are things the way that they are? And the second thing is what part of those things can we control? And currently at the moment, that's kind of what we've decided is we focus on the things that we know that we can control. I don't make lumber at my house and I don't drive trucks and, but we do deal with the things and we try to control what we can control in the environment that we're in. So, you know, how did it all start? You know, of course, we know COVID, lockdowns, infections, employees not working, government paychecks have a lot to do with it. You know, that's kind of in the beginning. We all remember when this thing very, very first started. I remember from the boss's boss, it was, we're going to stop building houses. It had a direct effect as we moved forward. We went for several weeks of doing nothing, putting nothing out. So if we're not putting anything out and we're not buying anything, the folks that we buy stuff from didn't know what to do either. So I think in the very beginning, it, you know, it was kind of we stopped everything. Where we come from, you know, I can say, you know, that, you know, how did we get to where we are today with, you know, the current climate that we have? And, you know, the biggest thing is how do we deal with the issues that we have? And I can honestly tell you as a company, we've sat down and we've said, we can't control those problems. We can't control those issues, but let's figure out which problems they are. May it be cabinets, may it be tubs, may it be all of the other things that we're going to do, metal. We've stretched our schedules if we've had to. You know, the part that, like Charlie said about the communication with the folks that you do business with, that's the one thing that we know that we can control, and it's the communication. And I cannot preach communication enough to our trade partners, to our builders. It's a big sign in my office that says communication works for those who work at it. So I think communication is beyond important. You know, our current problem is, you know, the things, cabinets, tubs, insulation, mirrors, frames, metal, all types of metal. And as a, you know, larger production-based business that's doing, you know, what we're doing, I can honestly tell you, and I'm sure there's a couple other guys who are going to say the same thing. We've just figured it out. We figured out a way to make it work. Figured out a way to say, okay, we know that these are our problems. We have a big whiteboard in my office that said these are the top problems. And we've adjusted schedules. We've moved things around. We've done things that we've had to do to close houses. Getting gas back to houses, that's one of our biggest problems. Our biggest thing that's important to us is, you know, having a house completed for the buyer when they see the house for the first time. It's most important. And there's so many little pieces and parts in there that are back ordered or not there. So again, we can't control that stuff. So we've just chosen to change the schedule. Stretch the schedule a couple of weeks. And in the long run, we've really seen, we've just changed that, and we've seen that, you know, that's made a huge, tremendous difference. Port problems that came up, you know, port problems and, you know, overseas goods. We don't get tons and tons of stuff. We haven't had a whole lot of problems with those. Door knobs, stops, catches, those type of things. Biggest problem is allocation stuff now. You know, before we put purchase orders out at the very beginning of the job with the expectation that those companies would see those purchase orders so far in advance, they could order the things they need at the front. We've gotten to the point now where they can only order a month out. So it's getting them purchase orders that far in advance makes no difference. So again, we fail and we fail fast, we move on to something else. That's kind of what we've had to figure out. You know, prime example is something right now, and somebody brought up fiber. So this was last week's phone call. Was can't get fiber shakes. And the question was, why can't we get fiber shakes? So after really making a phone call to, you know, the boss's boss's boss and find out why we couldn't get fiber shakes, we come to find out that the fiber shake line for that particular company we do business with has 8 guys on that fiber line. They've implemented some vaccination stuff, caused a couple to quit. 2 of them got COVID. So you take a production line of fiber shakes where they're putting out X amount per week or X amount per month, and Now you go from having to take guys off the siding line and teach them how to do shapes. And it takes 3 weeks to get them on plane. So how far do you think they're back? That's a prime example. And again, in my world, don't find out until, Tuesday when we're 10 houses behind. So, the freeze, everybody knows about the freeze in Texas. That was a big deal. We ran through tons and tons of paint issues, but again, at the end of the day, we just figured out a way to make it work. So for us, yes, supply chain problems are a problem, but we have realistically, between myself and Adam Marr, who's the production guy for us in the plumbing market, and we focus daily on the things that we know that we can control. And we still are closing houses. Each day it's something different, but that subject matter of supply chain issues. We've also said that we're going to march into 2022 with shield and sword and treat this year just like it was last year. And I don't necessarily know if we're going to cross a bridge that we haven't already crossed. So for us, we just take day by day and we worry about things that we can control. I appreciate it.
Next, we have Adam Kramer with Vertus Construction.
Thank you for that introduction. My name is Adam Kramer. I represent the small contractors. So I've got a small contracting company, I guess, small and large all relative. We do about 5 or 6 million. We're a relatively young company. I started the company about 6 years ago. So, relative newcomer to the industry. Of course, we're growing and it's a great time to grow, but we've got the same challenges. I think it's different ways that, our larger colleagues may not, experience. I'm sure you also experience them in a lot of different ways, a lot of worse ways than we do. So I think what I can offer here is to kind of give you all some perspective on how this affects the smaller contractors directly. I've got a team of 9 people. I don't have purchasing managers. I don't have, folks that are dedicated to, solely, putting out POs and building supplier relationships. And, of course, as we grow, I certainly hope and expect that we'll get there someday. But there's a completely different set of challenges when you're a relatively small outfit. Obviously, we have the immediate direct costs, and I think it was like 18 months ago or 2 years ago that I noticed on all our Sherwin-Williams invoices there was this supply chain charge that started showing up, and I think now it's every day or every other day I get a letter from L&W or Beacon or somebody with some number on it of this is going to go up next week and that's going to go up more. And of course, my subs love to send me those numbers too and show me how much more this stuff's going to cost next week, and that doesn't really do anything for me. One of the immediate things that it's done, we started out being primarily residential, which I'm sure, most, remodelers and new guys really, probably most folks start out in that industry or in that part of the industry. We have worked our way into being probably about a 50-50 mix of commercial upfits and a little bit of new builds and a whole lot of residential remodels. At one time, many years ago, a $10 or $20 or $30,000 job was a good job for us on a remodel, and now we're into the 200s and the 300s, and as those numbers have grown, the opportunities grown, but so have the challenges. And we now face a market where I heard some of my counterparts up here talk about lay people, just recently kind of having a new respect for the supply chain, and it's so difficult to go into that residential client and try to explain to them how I just can't quote this way. And I've got to gear you towards this and make this selection instead of that one. And those clients typically come in with, sometimes very inexact ideas of what they want, but they always know what they want to spend. And they usually have a pretty good idea of what their budget is. And there's very rarely that residential client that says, well, just let me know if it's 20 or 30% more a couple months from now, and I'll just stroke you another check. So that for sure is a significant challenge for us up front. And of course, that's led to things like us modifying our contracts and creating a whole nother kind of administrative headache up front and throughout the projects to try to continuously keep these clients updated. Is put a different kind of onus on us to work our supplier relationships. And because we aren't the biggest guys on the block, if I'm only spending $1 million or $2 a year on materials, I can only work so many supplier relationships. And sometimes, for better or worse, we just don't have the economy of scale. I can't buy stuff 6 months out. And I know sometimes the stuff I want to get may go to somebody like a Mungo before it comes to me. And, maybe sometimes it comes to me before it goes to Mungo. But either way, a lot of times we feel like we're in a position where we just can't command the same priority that other market participants can. And for us especially, we're small business, and that's kind of the backbone of America. And ultimately, these things filter down into our ability to cut payroll checks every 2 weeks. That's something, me as the owner, again, I've got an accounting team and a finance office that I'm lucky to have as a part of a larger group of businesses that, I'm affiliated with, but most of my counterparts in the market don't. And there's usually one person or two people that are worried about that every 2 weeks. And when you've got a materials cost that changes, or a client that changes their mind because prices have gotten so crazy, and you're chasing down different draws and things like that, and you're having to have uncomfortable conversations every other week on both sides of that picture, it really makes that part of it so much more difficult. So, really that's the biggest piece I think I can put out there, is that I almost feel like I should be out here saying, hey, how can y'all help us to fix this problem? And there was some great insight up here, and I've certainly empathized that there really wasn't a whole lot of, there's really no magic bullet, like, somebody else said up here. That's what we've heard from all of our suppliers over the last couple of years is, we're taking it all the way up to the manufacturers, and they're, a couple of years ago, I would rarely have somebody like in the building center say, well, here you go, email this guy at Schluter and see what he can tell you. But that's what we're getting now, because unfortunately, guys like Charlie can't really get answers either. So it's just a really, really interesting market. Pushed us to do some interesting things, certainly has motivated us to do things like change contracts, look at these things much more, try to look at them farther into the future, but of course that's been made more difficult. Obviously has made the cost control and the pipeline control much more difficult. We don't have a super long pipeline. It's about 6 or 12 months. Again, I don't have folks in my office that look at MSA statistics and land buyers and all those things like folks like Mungo might have. So, it puts us in kind of a different position. The other thing too that, so many folks have touched on is that subcontractor relationship. I had 7 houses that were under construction all at one time with a very tight time frame for actually a large multifamily company in town that has started buying single family and building single family. And there was a specific time frame that leases were signed, tenants had to move in, and we were just stuck. And I had subcontractors telling me, I had an electrician and a plumber and an HVAC guy all tell me all my guys are laid up because they're making more money at home. So there was a really weird time frame there at the beginning of the pandemic where that was a very interesting challenge for us. And there really wasn't much for us to do, but kind of like was already said, kind of face that challenge and figure out a different solution. And again, as a smaller market participant, I can only entertain so many subcontractors. I've got, friends and colleagues that are in other industries. When we talk about this stuff, we'll say, why don't you just hire more plumbers? Why don't you just hire more electricians? And one, I always tell them, there's no good job to start a new sub on, ever. 2, you got to have the work to give these guys to keep them entertained. And at this point, much like the supply houses, we get the same answer that I think you spoke about, which was take it or leave it. If you don't want it, somebody else will buy it. And that's the same thing that we're hearing from a lot of our subs now, is this is the price, and I'll kind of show up when I say I want to show up. We've always called working with subs, especially residential subs, we've always equated that to herding cats, because it's so difficult and it's so, it's all over the place. And, unfortunately, this market has made that even worse. And we feel like it's a little bit more challenging for a smaller outfit like us because we only have so much business to throw around. So we can only command the attention of so many of those subcontractors. And this market's just made it that much more difficult. So I'm really excited to hear that there's some initiatives to try to get some new young folks interested in trades and things like that. I may not be the youngest person in the room, but I'm not that far removed from being a student at Carolina, being a high school student. And, as a millennial, I can tell you, it was beat into us forever that you needed to go to college and you got to go to graduate school. And I did all that. And I'm certainly glad that I did. But I really hope that pendulum will swing back the other way and that we can teach our young folks the value of trades. At this point, I think we've started to see a little bit of the recognition that a college degree is not an immediate path to future success. So I think hopefully we're seeing that change be made a little bit. But that's something that we feel, absolutely in everything that we do. And I hear from my older counterparts that it just didn't used to be this way, that it seemed like there used to be a lot more options out there. So I'm excited to hear there's some effort to try to improve that situation as well. And then, somebody else spoke up here about the Yankees moving down here, and I think, we're seeing that. I was born and raised in South Carolina, lived my whole life here. Certainly have a lot of great contacts all over the country, and would welcome the good ones to come if they'll, ask permission. But we're seeing that. We're seeing people with crazy budgets and crazy amounts of money to spend, and it's great on one side to have all that opportunity to grow our business. And try to gain as that market grows, it's easier to get more market share. But with that, we seem to have an equal amount of difficulty trying to capitalize on that additional spend. And we know at some point that's going to change. Another thing, like with the real estate market, we do a little bit of spec stuff. And this morning, I got a quote from BMC on a duplex property. We got one under construction, one starting 2 weeks from now, $15,000 build cost difference. And so I'm on the phone with my real estate agent, I'm on the phone with the investors, trying to figure out whether this thing's even going to appraise at the price point that makes sense for us to keep building this thing. And these are already sold. I've got clients out there, and we've written into these sales contracts for materials price increases, but they've got it out as well if they don't want to buy it. So it has created a really, kind of an interesting situation there too, as far as housing supply, where I'm not even sure it's worth it to build it or whether it's going to appraise for that. So there's so many competing and overlapping pressures on the market right now. I'm not surprised to hear that statistic about, one home for every 4 realtors, because we all know there's just no inventory on the market. And I know why. I think we all know why. It's just hard to explain that sometimes to the folks that don't come to these meetings and aren't in this industry. So anyway, I'll wrap it up because I feel like we've kind of gone over a little bit here, but I certainly would welcome some questions, and I'm excited to hear about the other participants on this panel about how y'all are going to fix all this stuff long before 2025. So anyway, thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Adam. And thank you for all the panelists for y'all's insight. This is going to be, we're going to move into the Q&A portion of this evening. Because we only have one microphone, we won't rely on it. What I'd like you to do is, if you have a question, raise your hand. I'll recognize you in the order that I see you. And if you have a specific question for a specific person that you want to direct that to, that's fine, but you're also welcome to answer a question that I will look for the panel of anybody that may want to jump in and answer it. And we'll try to do this with only me having a microphone. Does that sound like it'll work with everybody? All right, Stan, you're the first guy to raise your hand. Go ahead.
I got a question for Rick. I just saw this on the news like the last 2 days, and something about 18-year-old drivers getting special training. Can you comment on that, or what you know about it? I just saw it like 2 days ago.
I'll try to boil it down. Every state in the country allows you to get CDL at 18, provided you're qualified to pass the test. But there's an antiquated federal restriction that says you can't cross state lines because that becomes interstate commerce, an arbitrary state line. Or you can't touch freight that has been deemed interstate freight. So that really restricts, where they can go. You don't want an 18, 19-year-old unless they're really sure that diamond in the rough to go long haul anyway. But we've been prohibited from even letting them haul containers in a commercial zone in Charleston from the railhead to the port back, which would be a great proving ground with specific types of equipment on that truck and closely monitored, extra schooling and all that stuff. So it's a pilot program, and we think that's the solution for some sectors, but it won't be enough. We got to get kids to want to do it.
Who's next?
Just a question for the lumber guy. You look at other types like hemlock. I have a tree farm. We got a ton of hemlock. The whole County, multiple counties
It doesn't, the chemicals won't penetrate. We're limited, what the chemicals we use won't penetrate hemlock. We're stuck with southern yellow pine. It's a chemical reaction with the chemicals we're putting into the react with the sugars in the pine kind of locks the chemical in. So we're very limited. With the treating side of things, now fire retardants, we can treat pine and or spruce. And there's some other firs, there's a little more more species we can treat with fire retardant. But for pressure treated, it's pine.
Other questions? Yes, sir.
I guess more for like the Mungo side as well as Versus, but what kind of backlog are you seeing with the interest rates starting to climb a little bit, like Charlie said earlier, from a 2.9 6 months ago, now we're up to a 3.75. What do you see in backlog homeowner wise? Are you having 100 homeowners, 300 homeowners that are looking for houses that you haven't even started, but you've already put on a contract that you're sitting there waiting for?
I can answer that specifically on that side. Just so you know, I work among it too. I'm on the other side of the equation. We realize that rising interest rates will have a potentially large impact on those that are already currently contracted on our homes. So our mortgage companies, as they approve them, are approving them for a much higher interest rate, 1 point or more, in anticipation that if it did rise during that they wouldn't be put out of the market on that. So that's one of the methods that we're using to address that.
And are you seeing that kind of climb as far as materials go across the board that's justifying the climb in interest rates?
Now, the climb in interest rates is more of an economic driver as a result of inflation in general. And there's a specific Federal Reserve policy that they've already stated they anticipate to have 3 adjustments to the federal funds rate this year that will certainly play into the interest rate market. The numbers, I will say, the number that Charlie shared an opinion of, our numbers aren't supporting that, but we fully expect to potentially 3/4 to a point, if not just a little bit more change over the next year, not a multi-point change. And one of the things that need to be kept in mind, and for those of y'all who are gray haired and been in the business for a while, we would have been celebrating the rates that we're talking about going to 7, 8, 9, 10 years plus ago. Even before the market crashed in 2007, we were averaging between 6 and 7%. It was the hottest market that we ever had. So don't let the thought or your mindset be, oh, interest rates go to 4, 5%. Oh, God forbid, 6. It's the end of the world. No, that has been celebrated. It's still one of the lowest interest rates we've had over a 25-year period.
But even with the talk of that, to the first part of the question, no bearing. I was on the sales call this morning, and it's no bearing. I mean, the backlog is tremendous.
Demand is so far beyond our ability to deliver to that even if it did have a significant impact on it, we would still have more demand than we could deliver.
Which supports the 6-month climb in lumber prices. Yeah. I mean, we're seeing at least 6 months worth of backlog, which obviously you are too.
Other questions? None? All this wealth of knowledge up here gathered for your benefit. Do not let this opportunity escape. I know you want beer and bourbon, and so do I. And after some of the things that were shared, maybe we all want to drink. But you don't miss an opportunity to ask a question. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Cassandra Edwards. I'm with Sanders PR Consultant. I have a business relationship with an investment bank who's out of St. Louis, and he has access to, if you could say, wholesale business supplies. That's something I'll be talking about, reaching out to you guys about. We also have several initiatives where we're partnering with people who formerly incarcerated and creating, workforce opportunities for them as well. We're also partnering with various organizations throughout the country where we're refitting old hotels that have been distressed and so on. So we're picking some of those up. I'm sure that will create some opportunities for contractors to do some rebuilds, whereas new builds may be a little too expensive right now. there may be some opportunity there with using resources as far as this type of supplies. Also, I've done a great deal of research and I have extensive relationships with people who are in the steel structures. So that may be something that, like Mungo, I don't know if that's something you guys be interested in, tapping into a new market, maybe if it's not here. So there are areas like Austin, Texas, and going so around the tornado ridden areas where there may be an opportunity to kind of tap into that. So I want to point that out. There's some value to it.
Yeah, like Josh alluded to, we are every day looking at every opportunity to fight whatever's coming. We happen to be blessed to be owned by our athlete players. So we've got a lot of things that will be made available to us through them that we haven't implemented. But thank you for sharing that. I did want to touch on one thing because it has been somewhat of a common thing that almost everybody talks to, and that is our workforce and where they're coming from, even to the point of reaching to our younger generation and bringing them into our industry. And not only have we got a great partnership in the Be Pro, Be Proud program that I remember back when I was state president, we launched the initiative of trying to get that done back in 2011. And it took nearly a decade to get done, and through the valued partnership with the Trucking Association and the other alliances that we have in that program. But we also, I want you to be aware that your local BIA is doing things. We have a student chapter that is based out of the Kate Center, Lexington, Richmond 5, which Stan was the originator of and the original chapter advisor or program liaison that I took over, and still 2 years later trying to fill his big shoes, and that as he focuses on bigger and better things. But we believe as a BIA and certainly that we need to make sure that the children who are in our high school system and going into school above or beyond that know the opportunities and the needs of our industry. We're going to do everything we can to continue. But other questions?
I have one comment.
Yes.
To piggyback off what this lady said, workforce is something that we hear a lot about and the challenges with workforce, but I think you made a great point is that as we go out and talk to manufacturers, one of the things when they start talking about the workforce, we mention, the newly released folks that have been incarcerated, and not everyone who has been incarcerated are like the scum of the earth. There's some that really want to come out and do a great job. And so I don't want to speak too much on it, but I know that the South Carolina Department of Employment and Workforce, they have a bonding program where you can hire ex-offenders and they ensure that relationship to make sure that if something does come arise because these folks, did something that they weren't supposed to do, there's some dollars attached to it. I'm happy to connect you with the folks at the Department of Employment and Workforce, but again, to your point, I just want you guys to just be thinking, we got to think outside of the box because, there's a lot of people who are not coming back to work. Some of it is related to, some of the dollars that they've received from the federal. There's a lot of folks, again, me working with small businesses, there's a lot of folks that said, I'm not returning to my normal 9 to 5, I'm going to open my own business. So we've seen the increase of the number of small businesses that have registered. So again, that's just, being innovative, thinking outside of the box, and definitely reach out to the Department of Employment. They do have a program.
Great. Any other questions from the audience? Any additional comments based off of anything from the panelists y'all would like to add prior to?
I'll piggyback off of what she's talking about. I mean, I'll tell you, only because I personally have a 20-year-old that asked me when he was in high school, who didn't know what direction he was going to go. And I gave him plumbing, heating, air, and electrical. And he's graduated high school, and he's graduated from Middle Tech, his electrical and wiring degree. And he works full-time as an electrician and has for the last 2 years. So I don't think the kids are arbitrarily on their own going to make these decisions when they're in high school. It's our job to say that, and I don't know how, but it's our job to say we need to push, because there are a bunch of these kids that don't have, the aspirations of going to college, or at least full-time, but there are a bunch of 7th, 8th, ninth and 10th graders that we can tap into. We just have to figure out.
Yeah, I'll say my wife is a school counselor. And when I have discussions with her about these challenges of making children or school age kids aware of their opportunities in our industry, the vast majority of the objections come from the parents and their perspective that their child's not a success or something to be proud of unless they go to a higher level college. It's not the children that we necessarily need to convince, it's the parents and that perspective that we need to stay focused on. All right. Just in case you don't already know, you've already heard of beer bourbon. I heard it's on the other side of the wall where you hear all the noise. Appreciate you coming tonight. This will be the first of what we hope to be many educational and informative sessions that will be provided through the BIA, usually associated in a workshop format prior to a general membership meeting, and then hopefully we'll pepper in, God willing, that we're continue to able to gather in person and things like that. Other specific educational efforts is provided by your BIA, so I hope you realize the value of your membership and the things that we do. You've got a staff with Alan and Ben back here and elected leadership and Stan O'Brien and his executive board working hard each and every day on your behalf. Please take advantage of what the association offers through that. If you were not a member, I invite you to be a member. If you are a member, thank you. And please let us know if this is meeting your needs and whatever needs you have beyond that. Is there any specific instructions, since we're a little bit late to the party next door, that we may want to go ahead and bring them up to speed on?
We're ready to go over here with tabletop time. We have 20 exhibitors ready to show you what they have to offer. They're all members. You want to head out this door here, just do a J hook around and go right in the next door over there. The bar is open. We have a bourbon tasting and a beer tasting. The food line is open, and there's door prizes. So make sure you register at all the tables for door prizes. And you're ready to go.
Thank you, guys. Go have a drink and tell them to put it on my tab.
That's right. Mike's fine. And thanks, Mike. It's just pretty cool to see it. Not even the crowd this year.